Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here. Welcome to another evening of the Technical Mining Meetup hosted by our founding sponsor, Compass Mining. Quick raise of hands. Anyone's first time at the space? Well, welcome. Took you long enough to get here, but we're glad you're here. This should be a great evening tonight with Vishnu and Tatum. It's more Vishnu than Tatum. Believe we're discussing procurement, logistics, and deployment of large-scale mining facilities, of which Compass is very familiar in doing. Should be a great evening. Again, welcome. Thank you for coming here at the space. We are at 81 members of our 210-member cap, and if you are interested in membership, come talk to myself, Tyler, anyone else on the board that's here tonight, or apply at denver.space/membership. We are still so early. Too early. With that said, round of applause for these gentlemen.
What's going on? It is your boy, Tatum Turnup. I am excited to be up here with my good friend Vishnu, and we're going to be talking about some technical mining stuff that everyone, loves getting in the weeds of. But before we do that, I want to go over a few things. We'll go over the agenda. If you've noticed, there's a different guy up here in this chair, and the other guy's in the audience. Well, that's because my good buddy Curtis, raise your hand, Curtis. He is passing this off to me, and I'm going to try to make him proud, but I'm going to fail. And also, before we move off of that, if everyone can give a quick happy birthday to Curtis, it is his birthday today. So happy birthday, Curtis. I am very happy that we get to celebrate it with you. So we're going to go over, we just did the welcome and announcements, I guess. See, I told you I was going to fail. But, of course, we're going to go over some hot mining jobs. Curtis did that. He told me I kind of have the freedom if I want to keep doing that or not, but I definitely want to because he's passionate about it. I am too. I left my traditional finance job with no plan whatsoever 3 years ago, ended up at Compass, and it was the greatest decision I've ever made. So I will always, always, always try to help people who want to get into Bitcoin jobs into Bitcoin jobs. So, in fact, let's go ahead and go into that, and then I'll introduce Vishnu, and we'll talk about the night's topics. But we're going to have some speakers. John Oates, who's in the audience right now, we're going to bring him up in a little bit. Sorry, I didn't look at these slides beforehand. That's my fault. I'll introduce the speakers now. John Oates, he is with Silo. Is it just Silo? Is that right? It's Simple. Oh, that's good. I like that. And he's going to talk about the logistics of Bitcoin mining. He's been helping with logistics for several people with mining-specific hardware, knows all the ins and outs. There's so much more than you would think about. And then obviously we have Vishnu up here. He is the Director of Global Logistics and Services and Managing Partner at CM Global Services. So Vishnu deals with this day in, day out, talking with all these people in charge that I personally don't think he should have the privilege to talk to, but he gets it done, and he is the powerhouse behind a lot of Bitcoin mining sites. Now, the hot mining jobs. This is one with Riot in Rockdale, Texas. Site security manager. I haven't looked at these specific. These were procured by someone else, but site security manager in Texas with Riot. Riot's a great company. They are currently building a gigawatt facility. There's also Marathon or Mara Holdings. Hunter giving that shout out for a site manager in Hannibal, Ohio. Then we also have Bitfarms, IT field technician in Sherbrooke, QC. I was supposed to look up if that was Quebec, and I didn't. Is that Quebec? Okay, that's Quebec. All right. And hopefully, if you are a member of the space, we just recently integrated a job board with our site. So as local jobs that members, like for instance, Brian Watson, he was a space member and was looking for a Bitcoin job. I posted into the group, and now we're going out to the middle of nowhere to sling some miners, and it's awesome. So that's another perk of being in the space. Just the community and network that you get here is awesome. And today, what we're going to be talking about is all the process that goes through managing and deploying a large-scale facility. There's a lot more that goes into it than you would think. Obviously, you can imagine there's a lot that goes in. It's way more than you can imagine. Promise you that. But we're going to go into the procurement of everything, the logistics of getting that stuff set, and then the strategic deployment. So we're going to first go into procurement, and this is basically how we source ASIC miners. Vishnu, when you're looking at procurement for a site, there's so much that goes into it as far as, like, are you looking to meet a certain target of machines? Are you looking at maximizing the power consumption or how much you can deploy out? What are some of the factors that you look for before the procurement process, and what does that lead to during the procurement process?
Yeah, so first off, thank you, Tatum. Thank you, Curtis. Happy birthday as well. For everyone that doesn't know, this is Curtis's baby. This whole meetup is his idea, so I appreciate you doing this for both people in Denver, but also for the community as well, and everyone online as well. Yeah, so super happy to talk about procurement, logistics, and some strategic deployments that we do at Compass, also at CM Global Services. When we look at procuring units, we look at a wide range of varieties. One of the big things that we look at is what is our client looking for? So a lot of our clients may be looking at highest terahash rating, maybe best, most efficient units out there, or maybe the lowest CapEx as well, right? So that's some of the things that we look at, discussing and understanding what our clients' needs are. Now, that's for a large scale. With Compass, we obviously do an MOQ of 1. Compass, will buy units off brand new units and plug them in where we have a 48-hour turnaround time to have someone hashing. That is more on the realm of we look at understanding what the market wants. So what does an individual client want? What does the plebs, the average person, want to see from their 100% of their hash? That answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. So once you get those key metrics that you're looking to achieve, where do you go from there? Because when I think about buying ASICs, I want to go to someone like Compass where I can just, place my order, MOQ of 1, and it's online hosted for me within 48 hours, or, other pleb places like Kaboom Rex or something. That's a common one. But obviously, there's a lot more. What does that look like for you when you're actually trying to procure those machines and also any other infrastructure that comes with it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So procuring ASICs, specifically if we're talking about Bitmain, WhatsMiner, Avalon as well, it's a very unique process. It's not like your traditional data center where you can just go buy it and get a bulk discount, especially with some of these organizations and manufacturers where they offer coupons, which is a strange way of doing it, in my opinion. Most of the purchasing will happen from distributors. So distributors will go to these manufacturers. They will buy a large lot of machines. Let's say, for example, 10,000 S21s. The distributor would then give us past that same discount down to companies like Compass or a Marathon or Foundry or so on along those lines. So that's the first process, right? We identify what distributor we want to work with. There's obviously a lot of distributors out there. There's a lot of ASIC brokers out there as well. For Compass, we go directly overseas to identify that. It's usually the best way for us to get the cheapest rate. Most of the pricing as well is done by per terahash. So not like your typical computer where you're going to go buy a $1,000 computer and that's it. This is per terahash, so it could be $18, $22, depending on what you're looking at, right?
So you're basically putting a dollar amount on the hash rate, and then you're spending that on the sticker hash rate
Correct.
of the miner. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, we usually buy directly from overseas, from large distributors overseas. We specifically tried to stay out of China, and we can obviously dive a little bit more deeper in that. But one of the main reasons is obviously due to the tariffs and duties. This is before the new tariffs were implied. A lot of these manufacturers moved their facilities out of China back in 2021, 2022. They started moving them to Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, so on. U.S. didn't have a lot of tariffs against those countries. So we obviously calculate that when we are looking at different lot sizes with distributors.
What that kind of goes into what I wanted to touch on next was the challenges that go into procurement. And obviously, as of late, we're seeing there's a lot of people who are experts on tariffs who have never heard of tariffs before, a couple months ago. But that is very directly affecting Bitcoin mining. Are there other challenges? Well, first of all, the tariffs pre this Trump administration and now, what's that look like challenge-wise? Like what does that pose on the consumer as far as like difficulty, or I guess even just any people in the production line? Where does that bottleneck happen?
Yeah, so I think it's unique in the fact that, you mentioned about like a lot of people are bringing up the tariffs nowadays. So one of the unique parts is that, like I mentioned, a lot of manufacturers moved their facilities out of China. So a lot of manufacturing is happening, in Southeast Asia. But still, one of the biggest manufacturing parts of China is obviously like the infrastructure. So you have PDUs, you have transformers, containers, also all the ASIC parts. Most of the ASIC parts are manufactured in China. That's one, to drive costs down as far as possible. So when you look at these new tariffs that are going to be coming in place, a lot of the items like ASIC parts, you're not going to see a huge uptick in price in that, right? One of the reasons why is depending on the type of HST code that you use when you're importing them into the US, because these are just parts and accessory, right? If you think about this in pretty layman terms, is that this is not something that's going to be producing a lot of money. This is going to be a accessory to a device that's going to be making money.
Now, when you say parts, are you talking about like the bolt-on parts we talked about last month, like PSUs, fans?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, PSUs, fans, control boards as well. Now, the tariffs we're going to really see them hit us is on the parts and the procurement side is going to be on the large-scale infrastructure. So a lot of transformers, a lot of PDUs, switchgear, also containers as well. We're going to see those prices jump up a lot. But with that being said, and this is a personal belief, it's my opinion, I prefer when we're looking at buying transformers and when CM Global Services also sells transformers, we look at sourcing them actually in Mexico with GE. GE is a good partner of ours. We try to continue building that relationship with them. Nothing against buying from China at all relating to the large-scale infrastructure. The main reason we don't is because of the lead time. The lead time from a lot of this stuff is going to be 30 days because you have to ship it by ocean, right? Versus if I'm buying here in the U.S. or buying in Mexico, I can have one of John's trucks go pick it up for me and bring it over the border for us. So the lead time in the manufacturing part is relatively the same, but the lead time on a delivery is going to be a lot faster.
So you brought up some things that made me kind of want to backtrack a little bit because we didn't talk exclusively about what procuring we're doing. Like, obviously, we're procuring ASIC miners. That's what's on the pallet right there. But you brought up transformers, PDUs, switchgear. What all goes into a site deployment? Obviously, I don't think you could tell me everything, but the stuff that you're looking for, what are some of those things that you're trying to source very meticulously for the best price and the best lead times and basically a happy marriage of running a site?
Yeah. So there's a wide variety of items. So the first and foremost is that we need to lock up the containers. Procuring the containers is obviously the most important thing. One of the things that you can do is either buy it from here locally in the U.S., used containers.
Which, by the way, I want to add, the containers that we're talking about, if you're not familiar, are mining-specific containers. They're for ASIC miners.
Yes, correct, yeah. Apologies.
I
should
always
have mentioned
forget.
that.
I always forget to like. I'll be talking to my friends from home and use all this terminology. Like I have no idea what you're talking about, and I'm like, oh, sorry. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. So these are mining containers, MDCs. These containers we will purchase first. Anytime we're doing a site deployment or a new site, whether it be for Compass, whether it be for one of our partners, whether it be for anything, right? We look at procuring the containers first.
So you kind of have like a flow chart.
Yeah, correct. A flow chart, a checklist, right? We look at least locking the containers up on contract. We then look at procuring the units themselves, whether it be that Compass has the units or a partner of Compass, or if this is a profit share agreement, making sure the client has the units. We look at identifying what type of units we are going to be deploying. And then we also look at one, especially with the new generation units, right? We try to identify, okay, we locked up the containers, but this container can only fit S19s, or they can only fit, old generation units. Okay, so now that restricts us on what we're looking at. After buying the container, the units, we'll look at procuring also a lot of the ASIC parts, like I mentioned before. One of the main reasons we do that is we want to have overflow stock fans, and I think this was mentioned last time, but Compass offers free fan replacements, so we have to have a lot of fans on site, lots of fans on site. So that's one of the biggest things that we procure right off the bat. We then look at procuring, obviously, cables. These are power cables for the units themselves. We look at procuring a lot of Ethernet patches, switches. We look at procuring distro switches, networking racks, FortiGate servers as well. We look at site security. What do we have to purchase for there? We look at purchasing, APs for the whole site. Like, this is something that's overlooked a lot of times.
And so a lot of that is on the kind of the final end of things, right? Where you're okay. So where does the one thing that I've always been interested in is transformers in general, because it's like, where do those come from? How do you can't just buy one. I can't buy one and plug one in. Like, what does the transformer procurement look like? Are you looking for a specific type of transformer for a container or for a specific load, or how does that look?
Yeah, so when we look at purchasing a transformer, we look at a few different things. One of the first things that we look at is obviously what is the load that's coming into the site. And depending on, most of the time we purchase transformers for our clients. For most people, if you don't know this, but like transformers that you see on the street, most likely, almost like 90% are going to be owned by utilities. The utility company owns it, they have the right to it. But you as a private citizen, if you want to build a site, you can buy a transformer. That is yours. You own that transformer. Same thing with the substations that you see around town, right? Some of them may be owned by utility. Most of them will be owned by utility. But if you go out somewhere far out, you're going to see a substation that could be privately owned. That power is not being generated for you. So I think that's a unique part to think about. But we look at one, like what type of power is coming into the site. Two, what are we trying to maximize? You can get 1 megawatt containers, but you can get a 2 megawatt transformer. You can get a 3 megawatt transformer if you want and split it up that way. So it's really a unique situation every time we look at it, and depending on what the client wants, Compass being a client as well, also our third-party clients. If that answers your question.
Yeah, and now that we've procured everything, I think we should talk about how to get it where we need to go. But first, sorry, I was really excited about that transition. I was super happy about that one. But first, I do want to do a quick little commercial break. We have some goodies up here that afterward we can give out, but Curtis so graciously has just given all the swag. We got some Compass stickers, some magnets, a few of our catalog magazine things. I don't know what you call them, and some hats. And one of my favorite things is the little Shamory card game. It's built as a kid's game. I know Scott and Mallory, and they said that you can play it as a drinking game too. But it's a card game to teach about Bitcoin mining, and quite honestly, it's just really fun, even if you don't drink. Hunter, what's up?
I just got a question for you. What do you think of making American miners?
Before we do that, I also want to say I will try to, until we have a microphone for the crowd, I'm just going to try to restate the questions for the broadcast. Hey, broadcast, thanks for watching. But Hunter asked about what Vishnu thinks about American-made miners.
I'm in full support of American mine miners. But that being said, I think that it's going to take us time. You know, there's organizations like Ardyne, Block, that are trying to enter this space. You know, as you're probably well aware, and everyone else is, like, Bitmain owns almost 87% of this market. That being said, they also don't have the best reputation, right? One of the big things is that they don't have an open source, right? Block has made that point clear to us, especially if you were here at the Heat Punk Summit. If not, come next year. That they want to make sure that this is open source, right? They want to give the innovation back to the people, right? When you look at the innovation that's currently being created with what Tyler did with Heat Punk and what anyone does right now with heat capturing and heat reuse from Bitcoin mining, right? It is doing a lot of re-engineering on the current units because that is the only way you're going to be getting those ASIC chips.
That was one of my favorite points from the Heat Punk Summit is that this is such a unique industry where we're buying top-of-the-line, brand-new machines specifically to break them down in some cases just to create these monstrosities that us psychopaths think are so cool, which they are, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. But to answer your question, I'm in full support of it. I think it's going to take us time to get there. You know, what Block is working on and both what Ardyne is working on, no matter what you think of either one of those organizations, they're really pushing that frontier back into the U.S. So I'm 100% on board with it, and I'm happy to see what they both create.
John, if you want to go ahead and come up here, we're going to bring John up to talk about logistics because I don't know if y'all have ever seen a mining container, but that thing's big. And so we're going to talk about how to get one from China over here. John, if you want to give a little introduction about you and Silo, just go ahead and tell everyone about you.
Yeah, for sure. I've been working in logistics full-time since 2016. Silo is what you call in the freight world a 3PL, or freight brokerage. We are the company in the middle of the shipper and the receiver, working to pair the shipper's freight with a trucking company that's going to move it, you know, across America, Canada, or the United States. We work on all different kinds of trucks, from Sprinter vans to really large multi-axle, you know, 100-foot long trailers that are moving 100,000-pound pieces of equipment. So it could be anything from one pallet of miners to a huge piece of infrastructure for a data center. Yeah, all different kinds of stuff.
And we're going to learn a lot that is the nasty part of it all because I will load and unload a truck, but then you have the heroes, Ryan and Vishnu, who are doing all the dirty work of coordinating all of this with wonderful people like John. John's been great. And John, you were a Bitcoiner before you were doing logistics for mining, is that right?
Well, yeah, so I, you know, had decided to learn about Bitcoin in the peak of 2021. I saw the price rip to 65K, and I was like, I've got to learn more about this thing. I bought like $400 worth in 2017 and saw it quickly turn into $200 or less.
I'm obsessed now.
And so, you know, I read all the books, started consuming a lot of content from podcasts and things like that. And, you know, about a year or two went by, and in January of 2023, I was, you know, watching a lot of like mining companies build infrastructure and build all kinds of, you know, pieces of equipment to build in the United States. And so I was thinking, like, there's got to be like a, you know, a niche here to build out like a logistics kind of, you know, service offering within our company for these companies. And so, yeah, since 2023, I've been building out a network of Bitcoin mining companies, and everything from, you know, people moving ASICs or moving modular data centers or, you know, building full sites at this point. It has been a super cool journey and just like taught me so much more about the like Bitcoin space in general and kind of like the physical side of it. You know, we talk about a lot of the digital side of it, but the physical side of it is consuming so much energy, and it's just such a cool organism to watch grow and innovate as the industry kind of matures.
So Vishnu, I'm going to let you kind of lead this because you had you were telling me that you had some things that you were wanting to bring up with him as far as like transportation and stuff like that. But I do want to ask, like, on the overseas logistics thing, do y'all cover overseas logistics as well, and or is it strictly domestic? Or
It's strictly domestic.
Okay.
But if you have a question, I'm curious to know.
I can also answer it.
Yeah, well,
Vishnu can answer.
look, Mr. Big Vishnu over here. So on the cost side of the getting it stateside, where's the biggest cost barrier that we catch as the company that is trying to receive things over here from overseas? What's the biggest cost implication there? Because I know that stuff goes into as far as tariffs, imports. You have these containers will touch hundreds, if not thousands, of different hands. What does that logistically look like? Just like procuring like a container from China over to the States.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely touch upon that. So, the biggest barrier is like the tariffs and duties. But for a container, for example, right? I think one of the biggest things is that you have to ship it via ocean. It's gonna take a long time to get here.
Okay, from one port to another, what's that timeline?
It could go so expedited is usually around 28 to 30 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then if you take a slow route, which is obviously going to be cheaper, which if you are stacking just a lot of stock in the U.S., you're going to want to take the slower option. You're looking at like 60 days.
That is a much larger lead time than I thought. I have a lot more sympathy for you now. I won't get mad at you when I don't receive an order in time. I'm just kidding.
But to answer your question, one of the biggest like financial burdens that we have coming into the U.S., with it not including the taxes and duties, is easily, and this is rare, but Customs and Border Patrol. With them seizing or detaining your product, you need to be paying every single day a storage fee that is astronomically high.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that in recent news, and luckily it looks like we're getting to resolution on that. But John, what does your day-to-day look like? Because I could imagine in my head you have 5 trillion different Telegram channels, and you have people blowing up your phone every day, and from 20 different companies, some people from the same company that don't know that they're both talking to you. Like, what does that look like? Are you trying to see what you can move from point A to point B, or are you trying to expand your business to see where else can we go? Just what does that look like for you in the mining world?
Yeah, my primary responsibility is I'm on the sales team, so it's reaching out to companies and trying to understand what their supply chain looks like, what kind of problems they're having today, if we would be a good fit as a provider or not. The other portion is working with newer clients that I've brought on that are kind of like ramping up into being like a more mature partner of ours that we've. A large part of like what we do is building out SOPs of like how to operate on certain kinds of freight or certain kinds of partners. And Bitcoin mining has been very interesting. Insurance has been a whole side of that, with our insurance company asking, is there actual Bitcoin on these machines? What's going on here? So it's been a lot
Quick
of education.
answer is no, okay? In case anyone was wondering.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten that question multiple times when we've had to
That's
move
actually
these-
really funny.
these
I hadn't
kinds of
heard that
things.
one.
But yeah, it's it is a ton of communication. I mean, it is on the phone constantly. You're talking to customers, drivers, shippers, and receivers, and you're just constantly trying to be like a good provider and partner for your customers. And we really just try and position ourselves as like the best service offering in the industry. Maybe not the most cost efficient, but if you go with us to move that particular load, it's going to free up a lot of headspace of not having to worry about what's going on with that load. And trust is like something that is very important when you're giving someone $500,000 worth of product to move over the country or more. And so the kind of carriers that we work with and the processes that we go to vet those kinds of carriers plays a large part in that as well.
So is Vishnu able to like call you and be like, yo, I got 3 containers over in the middle of nowhere and I need them in Denver, and you're able to like coordinate that? Like, what's that turnaround time if he were to say that? Because I know that he has he'll either say that and he needs it tomorrow, or maybe he's actually planning ahead. But I'm just joking. But like, if Vishnu were to say, "Hey, I need you to go to I don't know, somewhere in Washington or something. That's just a corner of the country. It needs 3 containers over here." What does that look like for you to build out that whole process to get them in Denver?
So to move are you talking about like a same day kind of notice or just general notice? Or?
Maybe just like hey, let's get this ball rolling. We don't need them until like next week. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I would say we have carriers that we've partnered with in the past. There's roughly 500,000 different trucking companies in America. 90% of those operate less than 6 trucks. So you're talking about a unbelievably fragmented industry where, kind of having connections in that space and knowing like who that driver is going to be or who that the dispatcher is going to be that's moving that load is important. So when I get that request, we're looking at the dimensions, the cargo value, the pickup and the delivery. We're pricing all of that into our quote to understand, all right, if we are going to move a shipment or we're going to move this load and we're, no matter what, unless a hurricane comes through or a tornado comes through, we're picking this load up. We're pricing in all of the risk of having to pay, more, potentially in some cases for some of our loads, like thousands of dollars more than we initially quoted to actually pick up that load. So if we've won the quote, let's say, and Vishnu said, all right, John, go ahead and go for it. There's a really intense compliance process in the freight industry. Unfortunately, like fraud and theft is like very much becoming a growth industry for both domestic and overseas kinds of groups. I think strategic theft is one of the terms of the industry, and that's up 600% in the last couple of years. So there are groups that actually specialize on this kinds of stuff when it comes to electronics and oddly enough, like beverages, like energy drinks is the most like saleable thing in the freight space. But we have multiple checks that check these carriers from a fraud, compliance, operational standpoint. So we're checking them, and there's a negotiation process of talking to the carrier about the particular requirements and expectations of that load and making sure that this is the right driver and this is the right carrier to partner with for this load. And especially for moving something like Bitcoin miners, it is a sensitive product. The insurance around it can be pretty intense as well, and so it's a lot of time vetting the carrier and that particular driver to make sure that we trust him to move this load correctly.
Yeah, and just to touch upon that, like what John mentioned is that I think everyone's aware that Bitcoin mining itself, the large scale side, is a very like immature industry, right? We're still learning how to do a lot of aspects that normal traditional data centers have been doing for 20 plus years, right? One of those big things was transportation, right? Talking with a company like Silo and working with John, that opens a lot of eyes about a lot of security risk. I would say almost, 45 to 50% of these drivers that come to pick up probably have no clue what they're picking up. It's probably just a hunk of steel to them, right? But the other 50% that do, right, this is a lot of value that they're moving, right? How can I guarantee that this guy that I decide to pick off the street isn't going to rob me tomorrow, right? And so working with Silo and working with John, it's really taught us about how well a company like theirs can provide security to us, right? To make sure that I have a peace of mind that I know my load going from Texas to Ohio is going to be covered. And I can get updates from him. He's going to be reaching out to both the pickup and the destination. I appreciate that he brings that up because that's a huge part that I think a lot of people in this industry lack on. They just think that they have to move units and that's it.
Yeah, sure. To give you guys a little bit of context as well, the standard, kind of amount of insurance that carriers and brokers in the industry cover a shipment for is $100,000. So anytime you get beyond that, there are like specialized insurance processes, whether it's the shipper insuring that load or it's the shipper trusting that the carriers are insuring that load. And I'm not going to lie, like a lot of companies that I talk to that I'm learning about their business, they could be moving a very expensive piece of equipment that has taken a year to build specific for a customer. And then you ask them about their, insurance process and they're like, well, the brokers take care of it. And it's like, okay, have you like checked the COI of that broker and made sure that like it actually covers what you think it covers? And like, yeah, they got it. And it's like, okay, well, you're playing a little bit of a risky game here. So
So the saying "don't trust, verify" kind of is
Yes.
a little.
Yes. Yes.
You have to trust
Absolutely
that they're
applies, yes.
verifying, I guess. When you said trust earlier, I was like, "Oh, that's a big word for the Bitcoin space." But yeah, no, there's going to be levels of trust, and I wanted to touch on that because all three of us have different roles that kind of touch this same niche area of mining logistics. What are some checks that each of y'all, I figure there might be some overlap, but what are some other checks that may be different between both of y'all that y'all are making sure things are happening like they're supposed to this year?
Yeah, I guess I could just talk about pretty broadly. So one of the biggest checks that we do is understanding both. I can just talk pretty micro sense on this. Like if we're moving a load, we are confirming the serial numbers on that load. We're confirming the number of pallets on that load. We're confirming the pickup origin, talking to the person on the ground there. We are talking to the origin as well. We are confirming once those units land there that the serial numbers match up. Odds are they do. But that one chance that one driver has that chance, that's like, I'm going to swap this S19J Pro out, with a T19. We'll notice.
Honestly, I'd be impressed if there was a
Yeah.
driver that swapped one S19 for their shitty T19. Go for it. But I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, so those are some of the micro checks. Now, when we think about large scale, when we're buying, millions of dollars, and also something to touch upon what John just mentioned. Like I said, this industry is very immature, and we are moving millions and millions of dollars worth of product in one truckload, right? It could just be one truckload, and a lot of times it's a carrier is insured up to 100,000, and I might not have insurance policy, and potentially my broker doesn't have an insurance policy that he offered to me, right? So that's a super unique part. Obviously, at Compass and at CM Global Services, we have cargo insurance, so don't worry. Feel free to work with us.
I can confirm they do have their own insurance. We've read it.
Verified.
Confirmed, verified, yes.
Yeah, and then so another part where you mentioned was like another checklist. When we do international freight, it's a little bit more tedious. We have to, most of our airlines go through either Dubai, Kuwait, sometimes Japan, very rare, but we have to make sure that we're checking in every time that freight, let's say 15 pallets, once it's loaded, we have the serial list number. We are communicating with the drivers on the ground who's driving it from the factory to the airport. We're communicating with the grounds team when they're loading it onto the cargo plane. We're communicating directly with the people related close to the cargo plane. So we use a lot of Turkish Airlines. We're very good partners with them, and communicating with them, understanding where the load is, making sure it gets scanned in, whether having a layover, and then confirming it when it goes off again to the U.S. And as soon as it touches grounds in the U.S., making sure our brokerage firms understand that it has to go through customs, confirming everything again. So it's a little bit more detail, a lot more work, but obviously worth it.
Yeah, some of the things I would say are going to sound fairly basic here, but there are so many steps in our industry that are not taken because it's, there are companies moving boxes of cereal on a 53-foot dry van, and then there are other companies moving highly sensitive electronics inside of that same 53-foot dry van. And so, the first thing that we do, and the kind of one of the processes that we built out with Compass is before the truck arrives on site, we provide all of the details for the driver, his name, a picture of the side of the truck. We have a picture of the VIN of the truck. We know his, MC number. We know the carrier. And so we provide all of that info to Compass for them to actually double check and make sure the driver that we booked the load with online or, over the phone is actually the driver showing up. And it might sound like, well, duh, of course it's going to be that same driver, but there are avenues and channels for that load to actually be intercepted by other companies and for them to, and this has happened with, General Electronics, but also Bitcoin mining shipments I've talked to several not partners of ours, but companies that I met at the last Bitcoin conference in Nashville. And whether it was a ocean container that was stolen or an actual truckload of freight that was stolen, if you lose $500,000, $200,000, $1 million worth of product or more, and you take that hit for your business, it's an unbelievable hit to take. And so providing that kind of context or that info to the shipping team and making sure that they check and verify that that's the same guy is step one. Step two is I think Ryan has all of their locations sealing the trailers now, which is like something that, make sure that the driver doesn't open up the trailer doors once it's in transit, and that the only person that actually unlocks the truck and actually brings the product out is the person at the final delivery. The other thing we do that is definitely something that a lot of our partners have is what we call consequential damages. And this is kind of like a large umbrella term, but consequential damages are like your hard and your soft costs for if a shipment goes wrong, what am I looking at here? And for some partners, it could be additional labor costs. You could have like an install crew on the receiving end. You could have a rental crane on the receiving end that costs $10,000 an hour. You could have a very upset customer if that shipment doesn't get picked up or delivered on time. Also, too, like a huge intangible is like our contact's time. So, do you have a family to get home to at the end of the day? Does your son have a baseball game? Are you going to miss it because now you're babysitting a load that is who knows where? You're not getting updates. You don't know where it is because it's between the pickup and delivery somewhere. But both hard and soft costs come to play when it comes to considering how critical is this load, and how careful am I going to go about selecting a carrier, both on our side, of course, but also on Vishnu and Ryan's side from the shipper side.
And of course, I now have to ask about the bad scenario of what happens when something does go wrong. Say that Curtis is at a facility and he needs to send me, 24 pallets of miners, and I get them. Y'all coordinate together and set it up. I get them, and I got those 24 pallets, but the serial number list is not accurate. What goes on there? Because there's a lot of parties involved, and at that point, I don't know. I just know something's wrong. I don't know where that something wrong happened. So what does that look like on y'all's end on the logistics side to try to mitigate that and figure out try to fix the solution and figure out what caused the problem? Fix the problem with the solution. My fault.
Hopefully, one of the previous checks has caught that, if you put a seal on the trailer and that seal number matches and it's unbroken or it's still, attached by the time it reaches the final delivery.
Then we got a criminal case.
Then you got some serious, criminal who's got some kind of special trailer or something. But, on our side, whenever a claim occurs, we're hoping that, the processes that we've kind of implemented with that partner, with that kind of freight, have been taken from all the different stakeholders, whether it's at pickup or delivery or, by the driver and dispatcher. And so we have a really built-out claims department, and our compliance team is, they are, I'm going to use a terrible analogy, but they are super, this is going to sound terrible, guys. I apologize if anybody's watching, but they are just bloodthirsty wolves who are ready to solve a problem as soon as possible, and they're very proactive in how they kind of approach things. And so we're getting pictures immediately. We're contacting our insurance company. We're contacting the carrier's insurance company, and most of our claims are resolved within a month, I believe is the number. But that's fortunate because a lot of these claims can go much, much more beyond that. And thankfully we haven't had that issue occur with any loads just yet. But yeah.
I wanted to just touch on that. That's why documentation is so important. What we do, when he was bringing up the pictures of the side of the truck and all of that, whenever I first started unloading trucks with Compass and was told I have to go meet the driver and check all the numbers, I was like, this is stupid. But now I realize if I didn't do that and something was wrong, well, I don't have any of that documentation to say oh no, this was the right truck. It could have been, it could not have been at that point. So yeah, documentation is very, very big in this area of mining.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just to carry on, your question before, right? If, Curtis was sending you a pallet and it was wrong, right? In that scenario, most likely it's Compass or it's CM Global Services that's handling the load right off the bat, we would not typically go to John immediately, right? Because then what he mentioned, he's going to go to all the stakeholders, understand what went wrong on his side. Our first point is, did we receive the correct units, right?
We're going to do some internal chats first to make sure that
Correct.
we didn't mix
Yeah,
anything up.
and this does happen. This happens more often than you think, right? Especially when you're purchasing old generation units from either a ASIC broker or a third-party client, and they provide a serial list number, and then when it gets to our facility, that doesn't match at all, right? We would go back to the ASIC broker, explain to them what the situation is. Obviously, if everything checks out on their end, then we'll go to John.
John, hey man, I got
All right, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, Curtis.
So since I came up a couple times, my question, so he can repeat it, but then before you answer, I want to make some comments. So my question is you know, where are you from, and how did you first get engaged with Compass? But before you answer that, like what I want to say is you're an amazing communicator. I think this is purpose built for people like you, industry experts, to come in here and bring like real knowledge. So thank you so much for being here. But
Thank you for saying that.
I understand that you came in from out of town. You and Vishnu had a nice dinner last night. You said you talked for a couple hours about Bitcoin. Where are you from? And tell us, how did you get to start working with Compass with Vishnu and Mark?
to restate the question. Curtis is asking for John's social security number, blood type.
If you could repeat his compliments as well, that would be amazing.
No, he was just asking how John got into all of this, because it is a very, like, this is something that I never thought about when I was learning about Bitcoin mining, but it is probably one of the most important parts of it, is because you can't mine Bitcoin if you can't get the machine. So
We talk a lot internally. We move all different kinds of stuff. I have partners. One of the coolest partners I have is a nuclear startup who's building a new kind of like small modular reactor and moving these like prototype pieces of equipment to and from their facilities so that lab technicians can view a certain test, and it's at 3 o'clock, and if that shipment is not there at 1 p.m., then that test is not going to go through, and they're not going to be able to, flying all these people in was for naught, right? And so kind of getting back to Bitcoin, but I'm from Nashville. We're totally based in Nashville. We're a totally in-person team of about 65 people or so. And my first partner in the Bitcoin space was Giga Energy, actually. And, I had reached out to them and tried to, in the brokerage space, we have about, I would say probably 2,000 or 3,000 competitors nationwide. And you could include Canada as well in there. So it's a very commoditized industry, very competitive. And so, almost everyone has a company that they already work with. And so I'm trying to differentiate ourselves by really understanding what their supply chain looks like, if they have any pain points that I can actually add value to. And thankfully, one of the things that's been really great about the Bitcoin industry is just that by learning so much about Bitcoin, by understanding the kind of asset itself and the network, and being able to kind of talk the talk on that standpoint, I'm not just a general person in the public, that's been a part that has created a lot of relationships for me. And so I think Giga had actually delivered into Compass, and I had called Ryan. We were talking about this last night, actually, because we were like, how did we meet again? And we were like, Giga, oh my gosh, it was Giga Energy. So part of our steps when we book a shipment is to call our shippers and receivers, go through all of the expectations and requirements of that load. This might sound super basic, but if the receiving site does not have a forklift or a pallet jack, you're not getting the miners off the truck, and that truck is just going to sit there. So
I have been in that scenario before. It's really embarrassing.
Yeah, actually making sure that stuff is on site, or that you confirm the shipping hours. It's just very basic stuff that we take the extra steps to do that insulates our customers and mitigates a lot of the risk of moving these kind of shipments over the country with so many different carriers that you might move one load with them and never move a load with them again, just because of the nature of the business, basically.
I'm glad you brought that up, because when you started answering, I wanted to ask you about understanding the industry, if that helps, and because I could see where it does, and you alluded that it definitely does. Now, are you an expert on nuclear power or whatever as well?
We were talking about this last night, and it's been cool. Bitcoin mining and innovative energy applications or sources of energy has been super cool, and like hydrogen, green hydrogen has been a cool industry to learn about. Nuclear as well. There's obviously been a huge push from like the previous White House to do like green energy projects, and so in the freight world, like you're trying to learn like where new opportunities are, and so in the past like 5 years, data centers has been a huge piece of like of growth in the U.S. and in freight, and then energy also has had a huge amount of demand for freight as well, and like particular freight strategies and kind of freight companies to solve certain problems. So, did I answer that question, or did I kind of?
Yeah,
ramble
no,
a
that was
little
great.
bit?
No, that
Okay.
perfect. It's good to work in an industry that you actually understand and are passionate about, because I feel like that is a step in the direction of what we always heard: never work a day in your life. And
Yeah.
honestly, every time I go in the warehouse, I love it, honestly. So
I would add real quick, if I may. I was talking with one of our other partners the other day, and this is when the price, I think, had gone down from like 95 to like 80. And, I was telling my guy on the job site, I was like, it's a beautiful day to buy some cheap sats. And he was just like, that's facts, dude. And I was like, that's right.
awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
That is such a bro moment. Y'all are best friends now. Like,
We are,
that
yeah.
was all that you needed to know. But John, thank you so much for. What were you about to add on?
No.
to that?
I think that was great. But before we moved off the logistics, I think I missed one of your questions earlier, and I apologize. You were talking about the tariffs and duties. I wanted to touch upon that. I think right now is a good time to bring that up. Is obviously the industry as a whole. I'm talking about Bitcoin mining, not transportation. Sorry, but directly related. Over the past 6 months, we've seen a large stoppage of units due to an FCC issue. This issue, unfortunately, we were one of the first ones part of it back in September. We instantly realized that this was a unique situation. For everyone's knowledge, Bitcoin mining machines get stopped quite frequently. They're not the most keen things for the government. Before they didn't really understand it, so they get stopped pretty frequently. They usually get released after around 7 days. This one was unique because back in September, us and several other organizations in the industry, from pubcos to individual miners to, smaller mining companies as well, started having units get stopped by the FCC. This situation has rose, and in around January time, we saw an uptick from, our normal, which is like 6% stoppage rates, and then in September and November it's around 8%, and then around January, mid-January, we saw almost 25% stoppages. One of the big issues was that we weren't getting any communication from the government, from the CBP, from the FCC, to understand why this was happening. I think one of the big things is, we want to help. We are open. Compass Mining is a U.S.-based organization. Our facilities are located here in the U.S. as well as in Canada. We want to help the government. We want to help and understand what the situation is. We have one of the largest repair centers here in the U.S. as well. We operate on these machines. So we saw a large uptick. The new administration was coming in. We want to understand how we could help. With that, we were working both with the CBP officials in Washington as well as the FCC officials to get answers on this. As of, I believe, like 3 weeks ago, we started seeing the first units get released after 6 months. So that was a huge accomplishment from, the Compass Mining team, from a lot of other large-scale miners who have been putting a lot of effort and time into this. But that fight isn't done yet. I think it's important that we have to, as industry leaders, continue educating both the government, but also officials, your local state officials, about what Bitcoin mining is and what these machines are doing. And so working with companies like John gives us that validized way of saying that, hey, we are working with other organizations in the U.S. who validate us, who validate what we do is a true business, and that we want to stay here in the U.S. So, yeah, I just want to touch upon that real quick.
So basically, Vishnu is one tweet that says "massive breaking" in all caps away from being Dennis Porter. So everyone, give it up for Vishnu. No, that's a great, great touch point, because that is something that has very directly, I mean, especially with all these new models coming out, and like they're highly anticipated. And am I correct in saying that at some point it was the control boards or something that was like it was the manufacturing that was iffy, that the FCC didn't understand or something? Or does no one have clarity?
No one
on
really
it?
knows.
Okay,
You
gotcha.
know, there was a lot of speculation.
Everyone's just an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
there was people
Except for
thinking
us.
that it was the chips or the control board.
We're
or
the smart ones.
So, yeah.
But yeah, seriously, congrats on breaking through with that, because that is a Vishnu is being humble about it, but he was working long hours talking to very many people to try to help out with this, and not to discredit anyone else that was working as well. It's been a massive effort. So thank you, Vishnu, for that. We're going to get moving on to our strategic deployment section, but real quick, another commercial break. I should have did this a little earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, everyone give it up
Thank
for John.
you.
Thank you so much for being here, John. I want to have that guy back. That was great. But we've kind of done this already, but I wanted to emphasize that I want this moving forward. I wanted to really encourage feedback and audience participation. If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll get to it at some point, because I know that, you know, we're up here talking and we might say something that makes some gears turn in your head. You're like, wait a second, I don't quite understand that. Or what if this happens, if this, yada, yada. We definitely want to do that. Want to maintain time as well, which we've got about 15 more minutes here. But don't be afraid to raise your hand. I'll be happy to ask questions. And if we do have time at the end, we can have an open discussion. And then also, after we get done in here, about 8:15, we technically have the building until about 9. So, and I don't know how much food is left. There's usually some left over. So let's go eat and hang out and mingle some more and talk some more over there. But before we do that, we're going to get into strategic deployments and what those look like. And what you're looking at here is these are the containers that we were talking about, containers and transformers. What containers are those, actually?
Those are RK
Those are
containers.
RK, okay.
Yeah, so RK is actually located here in Denver as well.
Oh, wait, so those are actually, were those sourced in Denver? That'd
Yeah,
be cool.
yeah.
Oh,
Those
we're
are
looking at
made and
Denver mining
manufactured
containers
in
right
Denver.
there. Look at that. Deployments. I'm a field deployment technician. It is in my title. These are fun. These are hectic, but deployments for me and deployments for Vishnu look very different. For me,
My fingers hurt.
Vishnu tells me to get on a plane in 2 hours, and I'll do it. For Vishnu, though, what does that look like for you leading up to it? Because there's how many months of planning happens before boots are on the ground? I don't like how you're laughing at that question, because
It depends. It depends. You know, ideally, I would love 6 months, but that's usually not the case. Usually, it's month of, and we're trying to figure it out. I think a better question is how many weeks do we have? But yeah, deployments for us is quite wild. Obviously, like what I mentioned, if it's a turnkey facility, it's a little bit easier for us, obviously. As you can imagine, we don't have to source the transformers, containers, and switchgear, and the gravel, and all this stuff, right? So if we talk about a turnkey facility for everyone is a facility that already has the containers on the site, already has the power being drawn, already has the transformers. Basically, we bring our machines and we plug them in. So for me, during a deployment, one of the big things we look at is understanding, one, is this for an enterprise client? Because we have clients that want to buy out the whole site. Two, is it going to be retail focused? Is it going to be enterprise focused, like I mentioned? And then working both with our revenue team and then understanding what's the fastest way we can get to deployment. We look at both pulling from different facilities or here in Denver, we have our service center taking a lot of Compass units and maybe taking that capacity immediately. Usually we have power agreements that we have to meet with the energy side. And so if we want to do a lot of retail hosting in there, what we would look at is putting Compass-owned units in there. So these are assets that we have acquired over the years through either client termination or something along those lines. We would go take that power for the interim. And then as we sell into those units or we sell into that space, whether it be we sell to an enterprise client or we sell to a retail client or small retail batch, we will start pulling those Compass units down. They'll get stored in Denver and get ready for the next redeployment.
And sometimes the people who build those pallets of Compass units also break them down and rack them. That was me. So you're saying that with that strategy of deploying the Compass units, that's primarily to optimize the facility in order to serve retail clients and so on.
Correct. Yeah. Like we usually won't sell those units directly to our clients.
Right.
We would usually sell. So, for example, if we had a large uptick in S21 sales, we would buy a batch of S21s, send them to that facility, pull down our units, put those S21s up, and start selling them on our marketplace or to our clients.
So in my role, when I look at a mining facility, I'm looking at the actual miners and seeing what they are, if they're online or offline. And my personal goal is to get as many online as possible or to rack them and plug them in. But for you in this scenario, you're not looking for miners being online. You're looking for a site being ready to accept new miners. At what point is it ready to go? Like how much time does it take to make sure that all the transformers are certified or working, that nothing explodes catastrophically? Like what all goes into that part once everything is at the facility and ready to go?
Yeah, so depending on the agreement that we have with the energy provider, we're gonna have a ramp up time. So let's say if it's a 20 megawatt site and we're taking it over on April 1st, the power company isn't expecting us to consume 20 megawatts.
It's not going 0 to 20.
One. Yeah. We're going to have a ramp up period and that's, obviously during the contracting phase and discussion phase where we can confidently say it's going to take us 15 days to get this site up online.
So is that 15 days going from 0 to 20, arbitrarily speaking?
Yeah, correct.
Just like slowly, is utility doing that usually?
So no, it would be on the power consumption side. So we will be able to control where the load is going. So a good example of this is, like an 8 megawatt facility, right? Let's say an 8 megawatt facility, we have to hit, 4 megawatts. Each one of these containers is taking it 2 megawatts each, right? So what we do to test it out, because we don't want to hit the 8 megawatts before 15 days, we will push 4 megawatts to 2 containers, pull that out, test all the units in there, make sure everything's running, then pull that 4 megawatts out, push 4 more megawatts to the other side while those are off, right? Does that make sense? These units are only consuming power when they are hashing. So if there is something wrong with the Ethernet side, it's not drawing much power, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so there is still some of what I was describing in that ramp up phase of making sure, because that is a good point to bring up that, if you plug in a miner and there's a bad hash board, it's going to be pulling power, but it's like minimal. It's when you are fully hashing, when you're looking at that 3,000 or so watts or something like that. And even if there's, like you said, a bad Ethernet cord, that can prevent it from hashing. How many parties are involved? Because I remember for the last deployment that we were working on, we were talking with tons of people at the city and contractors on the ground and different people from our company that's running around with their heads cut off. How many people are involved in making sure that a site gets deployed, and from how many different parties?
Yeah, so when you look at a site deployment, and if you're talking about a site that we've built, you're talking both, you got to talk to the ISP provider, you have to talk to the utility who's providing it. You're going to have to talk to the city, talk to the local politicians. You know, that's more on Curtis's side, but sometimes we have to do it as well.
Curtis is great at that, if y'all can imagine. He's such a good communicator.
We also have to talk both with, you know, internally, right? We have our field deployment teams, we have our revenue teams, we have our marketing teams. Marketing's trying to get pictures, or field deployments on the ground trying to deploy and do the work. So there's a lot of people involved and a lot of parties. It's a lot of orchestrating and a lot of balancing as well.
Yeah, and by the way, that wasn't me dissing Curtis. I was saying that he could convince me that murder was good. I promise you. Like he's great at that. We are getting close to time, so Vishnu, do you want to add anything else that that you were just eager to talk about that I missed, or any closing thoughts, philosophy?
I don't think so. You know, I think something to touch upon this, and Heather Pierce is in the audience today, but you know, she handles a lot of the site management side and site operation side for Compass Mining. She handles a lot of purchasing the sites for either Compass. We talk about checklists, right? We have a strict checklist that we go through for when we look at purchasing a site.
Heather has her own miniature checklist that has a checklist.
Yeah. And so sometimes those sites may not work for Compass, but Heather also has a large clientele of people that may match up with those sites. And also, you know, this is obviously a picture of an air-cooled facility. Hydro is another one. Immersion's another one, right? When we talk about those type of deployments, you're not just talking about the gravel and the containers and the units themselves. You're talking about, where's my water source? How am I going to dispose of this water source? Where am I going to put the dry coolers? So it gets a little bit more complicated when you talk about different types of Bitcoin mining. So yeah.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone, if you have the opportunity to go to a facility, if you have the opportunity to go to multiple, do it, because no facility is the same. Everyone is unique in whether that's good or bad. But super, super cool, gives you a whole new perspective. And I would wish that everyone had the opportunity to see a site, and hopefully one day I get to take y'all out to one, maybe. And that was me saying I want to pawn my work off on y'all. But Vishnu, thank you so much for being here. Where can we, if we wanted to contact you with any questions or anything about Compass CM Global Services, how can we do that?
I think my name is on the slide deck somewhere. Or my
It was at the beginning. I was trying to get you to re-say it. But.
No, feel free to reach me. You can. It's Vishnu at CM Global Services. Also, Vishnu at Compass Mining. But feel free to reach out. Also on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get in contact with me. My email is. There's a lot of stuff in my email, so.
Well, sweet. And speaking of LinkedIn,
it.
ask Vishnu when his profile picture was taken. Anyway, giveaway alert. We are partnered at Compass with Shamory, and if you buy a miner, you get a free game of Shamory. I'm telling y'all, this is such a fun game. Like, just what? But yeah, definitely come. We have 5 copies here. So be sure to grab one for your kids or yourself. You can. It's great for adults too. Special thanks to. I was pressing the. Oh, there's a laser on here. Sick. No one told me that. That's sick. The catering was graciously provided. Not graciously. We paid for it. But Easy Entrees at Silver Spoons Catering. I mean, it was still delicious. I brag about the space having the best food at meetups, because if you've ever been to another meetup, you've probably had pizza, and another meetup might have a different type of pizza. Not at the space. The space has all of the fixins. So thank you so much to Easy Entrees. And I had no say in that picture, but okay.
Thanks, Tatum.
Yep.
That was great.
Tatum, follow me on X or LinkedIn. But join us next month. We are going to be right back here, same time, second Thursday of every month. Next month is going to be April 10th is going to be that date. Hope to see you here. We will post So also, if you're following along on our meetup link, we still are going to be posting information there. But if you want to RSVP, we're just going to try to push to Luma because the space uses Luma, and we want to funnel everything through there so it's on all the space calendars. So if you need help learning about Luma, it's a little bit of a learning curve, but anyone here will help you. It's just Luma in the App Store. But that will be it for us, and we are 2 minutes early. I knew Curtis is really big on punctuality, so I was hoping not to disappoint him there. I just disappoint him every other place. But yeah, thank y'all so much for coming. We will continue networking, hanging out over there. Go get some food, have some drinks. But yeah, thanks for coming to this week's.
Thank you.
Thanks guys.